and early in the morning we have just opportunity to gather together and to set our hearts on you. We know that there's even believers around the world who don't even have this privilege. Lord, may we never take it for granted. And I just pray for anybody in this very room who is just facing some challenging news or some news that's really causing us to have to trust you. Lord, I pray that just as you've done through the rest of their life, that song would be true. How we've proved it over and over, time and time again. Lord, will you give us faith? Will you give us grace to trust you again? To trust you more, to deepen our faith in you. We give this to you, and in Jesus' name we pray.
Thanks. I met Ram Lee back in 2008 or 9, and he was checking out our church. He was moving up from southern part of Michigan, Ohio area. I think it was Toledo you were moving up from at the time. And he was investigating our church. His sister was already living in Traverse City, Michigan. I was the youth pastor, and I remember meeting Ram and his son, Dakota. And they were checking it out. When you get to know Ram will never do anything without clearly checking it out. He wants to make certain it's not only a benefit for his family, but it's going to move him forward in life. He's going to make certain he's not going to ever invest and be a part of anything that he's not thoroughly convinced is going to be a benefit for him. And he wanted to make certain that Dakota was going to be a part of a youth ministry that would help him grow and know the Lord. And I remember Dakota was skating around on a skateboard, and Ram came up, and when you meet Ram, you'll see that he has a stature about himself of confidence, but he'll come right forward and tell you, hey, tell me the truth. Tell me about this church. Is this a good place? Just that kind of demeanor. Ram started tattooing 29 years ago. So when he was 3, Ram has had a life that I'm excited for you to hear. He was involved in the fire department. He was in the military. He has a passion for his wife, a passion for his son, but he has a passion for art. He's not only a tattoo artist, but he's also a painter artist. He paints and he sells his artwork and has become very successful in that. He's in the process of writing a book. Ram Lee felt God's calling in his life over the last few years, and I've been a part of this journey because Ram Lee and I took a speaking class together when I lived in Traverse City. We went to a professional instructor in the area of teaching, and she kind of showed us the route of how to be successful in public speaking. And Ram practiced and got better at it, and he said, hey, I'd love to come down to Texas one time and make it happen and speak. And so this is really his opportunity to launch into a new ministry, being able to share from a platform like this. And I'm excited that he would be able to come down here and do it right in front of you all. So would you just give my friend Randy a warm welcome.
Before I even get into anything, I got a story. No one knows this but Tim and my family. Sunday night, my mom called me, and she's like, were you speaking again? I go, I'm heading down to the Houston area. She's like, your dad preached there 50 years ago. My dad wasn't preaching. Like, he wanted to go to seminary, but we're in a good Southern Baptist church. It's no knock on Baptists, don't get mad at me. But youth group, youth pastor, that's the way it goes. Then you can be a pastor. My dad was a very black and white man, which is where I get that from. He's like, God called me to be a pastor. So he'd come down here, and he got a taste for that, but he never got a chance to go to seminary. He walked away from the church for 30 years. He didn't walk away from God. He taught me the power of prayer, so I'll never underestimate that. He taught me practical Christianity. Growing up like I grew up, that was a huge deal, because I grew up in the projects, basically. I grew up rough. Multicultural. Friends from all races and creeds, which back then we weren't hyphenated Americans, so they were just my buddies, you know what I mean? And so that led me, I can only say this honestly, I really feel I'm starting out here in Houston where my dad preached 50 years ago. It makes me emotional, it's crazy when I think about that, and I'm really honored to be here. So what I'm going to start with today is why. And I'm standing before God, It's like, any Lord of the Rings fans? It's like the Balrog, like when you're out at the bridge, thou shalt not pass. So anyways, I'm on this like bridge, and there's this huge white, like pure white glow. There's people in front of me, maybe 4 or 5. There's people behind me, there's a couple of drop-offs. And I'm just standing there, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm looking, and it's God, and He's judging people. And I'm getting ready to get judged, and I'm looking at Him like, so, and as I'm standing there, and I'm distracted, and I'm watching people drop it. And it's kind of like when you come into space and the atmosphere, and everything just kind of lights on fire. That's what these people were doing. They're dropping, dropping, dropping. I'm like, so I'm tripping out. Look, I'm saved. I believe in Jesus with all my heart. I have since I was 5 years old. But I'm like, why is this? And I interrupt God. I'm like, hey, what's going on right here? Why am I seeing this? And He's like, those are all the people I sent for you to tell about me, and you did. And then I woke up screaming at 33 years old, woke my wife up. It was one of the worst nightmares I ever had. That's why I'm here. Because I do not want anyone to miss an opportunity to know Jesus, because I didn't have the guts to hear that voice in my head and share it. And that's what I do. That's what I do with my tattoo shop. My tattoo shop is my ministry. It's a private studio. I work on 1 tattoo a day, 4 to 6 hours, and that is my ministry. I get a chance to share the gospel. I don't know how many times I get to share the gospel. And I will be clear about that. When I do share the gospel with people, I care, but I don't care if they get it. And the reason I say that is if I care about everybody, I'm going to go nuts. I'm not going to be able to handle it. And so I share it. I do what God asked me to do, He asked all of us to do, to be disciples of men, to share His word. And so I share it, and I hope to get it. Kind of like I had an old timer tell me back when I was a young man. He said, you throw the pebble in the water, you don't know where the river's going. So how I got to this point, other than that crazy dream 25 years ago, because thanks Tim, but yeah, I'm not 32, whatever the math would be on that, 58. But how that happened is I grew up in East Toledo, and East Toledo were called 05ers, 43605, so we're 05ers, and it was rough. It was, we were poor, like me and my sister and brother Joe, we didn't know we were poor until we were 30, but we were poor. Like, it was crazy. You know, we never knew it, because our family, we had my brother, my sister, my mom and dad, we had, my mom had 6 brothers, my dad had 3, I mean, so we had really a great upbringing, and my dad got us into church early, even though, you know, he hasn't walked away from it yet. So we're going to church, East Toledo Baptist. I'm learning about God. I was baptized, I believe, when I was 8, which is awesome, but I don't know anything. I just know that I've heard about Jesus, and I want to be a part of that at 8 years old. Went to youth group probably until I was 12 or 13, and I walked away from it. Started drinking when I was 13. I remember I had my first beer with my dad. His best friend was killed in Vietnam. And my rite of passage into being a teenager, my dad picked me up at 11 o'clock on a Friday night and drove me out to the cemetery, and at midnight I drank a beer with him on Arnie's grave. Arnie Cantu was his name. He was killed at 19 years old. That was an interesting time. Then we just moved forward. You know, I go through high school. Now, high school, my parents were strict. I had great parents. I have great parents. My dad's gone now, but great parents. So I was in the National Honor Society, graduated the top 8% of my high school, had opportunities. When I was 17, April 2nd, 1982, I joined the U.S. Army Reserve. My thinking then was, I've always had a heart, like I'll backtrack. My grandpa, in World War II, I have a picture of him on the tarmac in England. He jumped the night before D-Day. He was 101st Airborne. So that was a big deal to me. Like, I wanted to honor my grandpa. My dad couldn't go in the military because he's blind in one eye, and they wouldn't let him in. So I joined the military. Between my junior and senior year of high school, I'm in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which we affectionately call Fort Boston Woods, Missouri. Anyone who's been to those, I think you know. Yeah, you know. So I'm there for boot. I come home, do my senior year, with the intention of going back to my AIT, what was called split option, and then I was going to go Airborne Ranger. I was going to go full time. I just wanted to get started. The reserves got me started. I'm going to go after. So I want to go Airborne Ranger. I want to go Green Beret. I want to do it all. Don't know if I can. Those guys are the best of the best, right? But I was physically strong, mentally strong. I'm going to go for it. My senior year, I won every award I could win as an art student. I rethought everything. I stayed in reserves. And I'm glad I did. I got my honor roll, and I love serving my country. Now I graduate, and I'm going through life, and I find the joys. I was a big hockey player. I love playing hockey as a goalie. So my joys in my 20s was my professional art career that was getting going, playing hockey, chasing women, and drinking beer. And I love to drink beer. I'm Irish, and I could drink beer. My friends would be doing coke all night. I'd be drinking beer right with them. 6, 7 in the morning, we're walking over to the local pub getting 25-cent breakfast tacos. I'm hammered. They're all spun out on coke, and that's what we did. I never got the coke thing, the drug thing. I tried it. I didn't get it. I'm like, I don't understand this. The weed, tried acid once. This is how my life was going. So the thing is, as all this is going on, and I'm moving through life, and I'm meeting women, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing, and I actually from 24 to 28, I'm going to Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a snowbird in my 20s. It was awesome. I had clients in Phoenix, where I was an illustrator, and Toledo, where I was an illustrator. So I got this cool life going. But I'm not gonna lie to you, there's those moments when I was really drunk, or when I was stone cold sober and clear, that I realized that I'm the prodigal son. Like, I just want what I want. I was so selfish. I tell my wife this, when I look back at my life in my 20s, it was about my happiness, about me doing what I want. I mean, I could go to a bar on a Friday night and I could drink, I could get in a fight, it was fun, it was whatever. And it was stupid, but it was what I did. But it led me to what I call tequila gospel. Sharing the gospel with my buddies on tequila. That's an interesting take, guys. I mean, the heart's in the right place. I believe in Jesus. And my friends, growing up, we were kind of considered in our neighborhood a Christian family, even though what I know about a Christian family, we weren't Christian. I mean, we had our faith, we believed, but we didn't act. My dad did. My dad was a good man. I strayed. Which then leads me to where I become a tattoo artist at 29 years old. I actually got taught to be tattooing. I had a good thing going. I don't want to learn something new like this. And I also didn't think I could tattoo while people are watching me do my art. I mean, I had my studio. I just leave it alone. I'm putting Pearl Jam on, and I'm jamming out, and I'm creating, and I'm liking it. But I get into tattooing, which then, and again, these are these God moments for me, where He brings me my wife, my soon-to-be wife. And her name is December, which is awesome. And she's awesome. Been with her 25 years now, 26 in June. But I tattoo, she comes in with some guy, and I tattoo this guy. And then she comes in a week later, and I was like, how's your boyfriend's tattoo? He went up, she goes, that wasn't my boyfriend. I'm like, sweet, when we going out? We haven't got done ever since. Now, we've done everything wrong. And now I haven't gone back to church. The only time I went to church was funerals and weddings. I haven't been to church since I was 12, 13 years old. I will say this, back to the practical Christianity thing, I haven't lost my faith. Like, I always knew, like I told my dad, we were sitting around on the patio, and I was hammered. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to make 30, because it was rough. It was getting rough. A lot of fights, a lot of craziness. I had just gotten jumped, me and my brother did, by 6 guys, just walking home from a party. And I tell this story, the only thing, I used to say the only thing that saved us was me and my brother were pretty mean, and we were good fighters. I mean, that was my identity back then. We were good at it. And when you're fighting 6 guys, my brother got stabbed, he took 40 stitches, I took 18 in the head, 6 in the face, a bunch in the back where I got stabbed. And we ended up in the ER, and we ended up living through it. And actually, it's one of the times in my life where I had murderous thoughts, like I figured out who the guys were, I figured out their neighborhood, and then I figured out I'm gonna go grab each one, we're gonna snatch one by one, we're gonna take them back to East Toledo, take them to a basement, hang them from the rafters, and we'll just take it from there and see what happens. Evil thoughts, and then it's that foundation of Christ kind of coming back, like, yeah, you can't entertain these thoughts. So I didn't. So back to talking to my dad, I said, I don't think I'm gonna make 30, things are kind of crazy here. He's like, you'll be fine, just keep plugging away. So then, again, I meet my wife at 30 years old, and it's a game changer. So now, we moved to Phoenix. We've been together 4 months. We moved to Phoenix, Arizona, end of October. Oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. Okay, it's cool, whatever. We're not married. Living, she's working at Planet Hollywood. I'm tattooing at an awesome shop in Phoenix, a street shop, busy, making great money. 1996, Dakota. Great, lovely son. And then we ended up moving back 2 months later to Michigan. We live in southern Michigan, right by Toledo. And then it's like, I've got this kid and I don't have a wife. So we get married 3 weeks before his first birthday. My son was at my wedding, so that was cool. And he doesn't remember. He was not a year yet. So we do it all. But the bottom line is we had just started going back to church. So when we got married at the Warren Baptist Church in Jackson, Michigan. And because of our lifestyle, Pastor Mike Lee, who has passed away since, what a great man, he just sat us down and we talked. And he walked us through marriage, what it should be. And he knew we had done it all wrong by the Bible, by what God wants us to do. He didn't judge us for it, he just got us through it. And then he married us. Okay? And like I said, we've been married 25 years. But what that did is it just showed me like the love of God, it showed me grace, it showed me like, I'm doing everything wrong. I walked away from him. Now I got a kid, I got a wife, and I rededicated. I'm there at 32 years old. I was married at 32. That from now on, I'm going to do what I know I'm supposed to be doing, which is follow our Savior, follow God. And I did. And it's 1 foot in the world, 1 foot with Christianity, and I'm working through it, and I'm growing, and I'm learning, and I'm tattooing, and the tattoo career is blowing up. I'm in magazines, I'm going to these conventions, international shows, and now that's my identity. It's not the fighting anymore, the random military, it's the fight, the tattooing. Things are good. Well, then we get hit, we get blindsided, and my son's 4 years old. We know something's not right. We take him up to the hospital, Mott's Children's Hospital in Michigan, U of M. And we find out he's got a rare birth defect. His birth defect is his femurs are candy caning in his hips. So they're growing crippled. So I'm doing anything. I am praying. Take my legs, Lord. I played hockey my whole life. I've been athletic. I've had a good life. I screwed it up in my 20s. Just, works. It's all about work, right? I didn't do what I'm supposed to do because I take my legs. And he didn't. Instead, my son had his first surgery. And I remember the doctor saying, he's going to lose a lot of blood. So they have to get blood from us. There's always a chance when that happens, things can go south and he could be gone. Anyone that's got kids knows you don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. So I am on that roller coaster ride of emotions with God. I'm mad at him, I want him, I need him, I'm mad, I want him, I need him, And we go through all this to where the time comes for the first surgery. I didn't sleep that night. In fact, I had that heart beating like when the deer walks in front of you, you got your ball, your heart's in your chest, and that's how it was for me for like a week. So I go in and I made a promise to him. I said, you're going to fall asleep to your dad and you're going to wake up to your dad. And I grab him, carry him in, and I lay him on the operating table, and he goes to sleep. And I am crying like a little girl. I am just emotional. And I walk out, and I go out of the operating room, and I stop, and then all of a sudden I had a peace I cannot describe to you, and it had to come from God. And I went up to the lobby, and I told my wife, Dakota's fine, no matter what. And no matter what is, if God heals him or God takes him. I knew he was good. Excuse me, guys. That's tough. That's tough. All right? And he was fine. Then we find out he's got another thing wrong called slip epiphysis, where his growth plates are sliding. So now they got it going, it's like NASCAR. They got to figure out how to put these pins in him so that his growth plates can grow, but he's not going to slide out. And he's got this going on. So he has, from the age of 4 to 13, 13 surgeries. In 1 year, 3 of those surgeries were break the femurs, put him in a body cast from chest to toes, and then re-walking in after that. 2 months, 3 months of therapy. Going through all this, and this is what we're going through. Keep leaning into God. Keep leaning into God. This is, honestly, hindsight's always 20/20. This is God shaping me and my family to just kind of, you go in the ditch over here, but then you come back up and you just keep going. So we get through all that, and we're living down still in southern Michigan. I had gotten on the fire department in 2001, right before 9/11 actually I joined, because I was in a little farming community. I became a firefighter EMT for about 7 years. I enjoyed that. I really did. I saw things I don't care if I ever see again, but I really do like helping people. That's just the way God created me. I always say I'm a sheepdog. I don't like bullies, and I don't, if I can help you, I want to help you. And now as an older man, 58, I don't think I'm old, but as a 58-year-old man, when I help you, I want to share Jesus with you, because that's going to help me more than anything I can do. through the fire department thing, and we're going through everything with our son, and then after 13 years old, he's good, no more surgeries. We didn't know that, but no more surgeries. He had been going to a church. I gotta tell this story, I'm sorry. Because this is another game changer for me. This is a grace versus works kind of thing. This is a show your love. Kind of what you're talking about doing, Tim, with the men's group. Like, welcome everybody. I'm going to a church, my wife and my boy, he's young. I'm tattooing, and I'm inviting people I tattoo to our church. There's some hardcore people come to this church, man. I'm talking tatted faces and piercings and they're struggling, right? So they have a church meeting, and we're members of this church, so we're at the meeting. And a couple of the people stand up and said, "We don't want those people at this church." And I stood up, and my wife stood up and go, "Where are those people? What are you talking about?" Right? I mean, I'm tatted up, right? I know Leviticus. I know that's Old Testament law. I know what it says before, don't mark your body. I know what it says after, not marking your body. Like, so what's the issue? These people need Jesus just as bad as you do, and you do, and you do. So we left the church because they weren't budgeting on it. They didn't want those people in their church. So that was part of sculpting where I'm at now today with my faith. Is opening my doors to whoever I can talk to and sharing with people about Jesus. I don't care if you're gay, transgender. I've talked to all of them. I've had some great witnessing opportunities. And I don't say I because of I say because of God. God wanted that in my life. I didn't do anything but run a big mouth because I'll talk. Right? I do a lot better sitting in my tattoo chair than in front of seats like this sometimes. You know, it's a little awkward. But I'll talk to you about it. So that happens. We moved to a church called Richmond Church. And not to break your heart, Tim, but that's where our youth pastor there was amazing. Greg Hill. He's now the lead pastor. And that was where we were talking about moving to Traverse City. We had met Tim, thinking about it. We don't pull the trigger right away because of our youth pastor. He's really getting some good teachings. And I backed out. I said, we're not going to move. It was a miserable year for me because we didn't move. We should have moved. God called us to move, and I said no. I don't ever say no to God anymore, really. I did. It was a rough year for me. Fast forward, we moved to Traverse City. We end up at Bay Point Church. And the first 6 months we lived there, I was on the road for them, so I could make a living. You know, tattooing in Phoenix and LA and all those places. And then I opened up my shop and we just kind of moved forward. And life is just kind of cruising along. We're going to a good church. We're in a good place. I'm learning a lot. I'm growing with Jesus, growing with my family. My son is now, we homeschooled him, but now he's going to this homeschool program at the high school. So that's going good. And then we find out my dad's got cancer. My mom and dad lived in Phoenix at the time with my brother. And we find out he's got small cell lung cancer. And I'm like, that sucks. So we take off, we load up, we drive out and spend a month out in Arizona because I could work out there to Dakota's homeschool. And I'm taking my dad to chemo, and the first thing he says to me, he's such a practical man, is, don't worry about me, man. I smoked my whole life. I get what I get. Small cell lung cancer is directly from smoking. And it's terminal. It's stage 4. He ain't good. They gave him a few months. He lasted 15, I believe. So we're like, all right, so we're dealing with that. My dad's my best friend. All right, I'm his oldest son. He taught me sports. He taught me Jesus. When I look at my dad, and this isn't a knock on my mom, because when I put my parents together, God gave me the best parents to show me unconditional love in an earthly way. They can't show me unconditional love like God can. He crucified his son. Right? But my parents were awesome. Whatever we got into, we put them through hell. They were with us. They weren't enablers, trust me on that one. Where dad would lay you out, let you know. But they were there. So I'm talking to my dad about this, and they end up moving back to Traverse City to live with my sister and now my ex-husband. It was tough. I'm sitting there, but what come out of it, again, brings me back to this, it brings me back to grace, and it brings me back to why I'm here, is what I call the couch sessions. And this won't be a chapter in the book that I'm working on. So I'm a hockey fan, I said, big Montreal Canadiens. We grew up on the Montreal Canadiens hockey team. That's what my dad listened to on the radio in the 50s and 60s, so hockey. So what I did is, in January 2013, I got NHL center ice at my sister's house. I I worked my whole life around the Montreal Canadiens hockey schedule. Every time the game came on, I was sitting with my dad on the couch, watching hockey, more importantly, talking about life. And going over stories. And he's talking to me about my faith. He's like, do not hold this against God. This is happening. We all die. Get used to it. And he's right, right? We all, no one here gets out alive. Jim Morrison said it best in the 60s. So that's the way that is. And I just think of all the talks we had and all the lessons I got. And I remember asking him, like, Dad, are you worried? And I'll say, I'm going to heaven. I'm going to see Jesus. My eyes are going to shut. They're going to open. I'm going to be with Jesus. I'm good. I'm worried about your mom. I'm like, well, don't worry about mom. Those kids got hurt. She'll be fine. Take care of her. He goes, all right. So we're talking, and then I asked my mom, I'm like, all right, man. And now, first of all, my dad was not a liar. His integrity, his honesty was off the chart. I questioned it. I'm like, Mom, really? I mean, you guys are laying there in bed, and this is like, we didn't know it then, but we're a month away from him being gone. I'm like, dude, I mean, he's not worried, son. He doesn't talk about it. No anxiety, no nightmares. He's just, when he goes, he's enjoying what he's got left. So, keep doing the couch sessions, and the last week he was alive, based on South Quick. I was actually supposed to fly to Phoenix to work. I'm sponsored by some companies in the tattoo industry. I was actually supposed to fly to Phoenix to do a convention. I called my sponsor and said, I'm not coming to Phoenix. I got a weird feeling. And then that day, he took a turn for the worse. He died on May 2013, which is my mom's birthday. He died that morning. She told me she woke up, she went to go in the bathroom, he was laying there. He couldn't talk, but he acknowledged her. She said something. She come back, he was gone. And I'll never forget it. She asked me, she's like, why did he die on my birthday? And I said, because he said he was going to make your birthday. He's a man of his word. He told her, I remember telling her, what, I'll make your birthday. He died on our birthday. I told her, celebrate that. He was there for your birthday. And he died 2 months shy of their 49th wedding anniversary. I mean, you want to talk about learning about love? Watching my mom and dad interact. And I'm talking even through the hard times. You know, when Dad struggled back in '83 when my grandmother died, his mom, he got whiskey drunk. Me and him actually got into a fight, like a fist fight, because he was going after my sister, not even knowing it. He was him whiskey in the face. He never drank after that. Whiskey. He liked his beer. So anyways, we were talking about all this, and I'm like, I had that peace again. Like, he's gone. My dad's gone. My best friend. And you know, I had people come up to me like, dude, you don't seem very emotional. I'm like, my dad's in heaven. That's a promise. Right? That's something that is, all you have to do is accept that promise. And he did. And we did in our family. But I'm going to see him again. And that makes things so much nicer. Because he's gone. I ain't seen him. I hear his lessons every day. I mean, he's always in my head. You know, don't do this, leave. And I'm still struggling with work. So I'm not good enough to be here in the Houston area right now. I shouldn't be here. All the crap I've done, all the crap I still do sometimes, you know, it's like, but I'm here because I'm saved by grace. He helped teach me that, to understand grace. So my dad's gone. Bay Point does the transition to Kensington. That was a weird transition for this church that we love. Left the church. I went to church for 3 years. So then fast forward, we find another church called the Tabernacle. Buckley Tabernacle, small town church, awesome church. So we're going to this church, and then while we start going to this church, the Texas shootings happened at the church here years ago. And so I approach our senior pastor, and I'm like, look, I'm ex-military, firefighter. I'm not bragging about like a sheepdog, I grew up fighting. I have no problem with conflict. I want to be on the engagement team if that's possible. I want to help. Because I don't want to see this happen at our church, because it can happen anywhere, sadly. So he introduces me to Matt Simon, who's in charge of this. They vet me. That's all good. They do everything. I get on the team, I train, and the training's great, especially when you're in your early 50s and you get to do Krav and Muay Thai Jitsu and all this fun stuff, and you're learning, you know, protecting your weapon, you know, handgun defense and all this stuff. But more importantly, you're there to serve your community, to help people out, and if something happens, to do what you got to do to help them. And I don't know what that looks like, and luckily I've not found that out yet, and I hope I never do. So I get on the engagement team, train with those guys. It's a great church. And they have a club. We're going to give you a plug now, Tim. They've got a men's group called Fight Club. Anybody see the movie Fight Club? All right. So there's a bunch of rules in Fight Club, and I'm going to talk about Fight Club, which you're not supposed to. Fight Club is groups of men that meet at the church, and there's different leaders. You're 8 to 10 people, and we meet. So I started going that first year. I went maybe 6 times. People like, I'm good. Thursday night football, because it's not Thursday night. I'm watching football. I'm not doing Fight Club. I got enough going on with my career, and my time is my time, and I don't do Fight Club. I kind of walked away from it. Still at the church, I just didn't do the men's group. Brian Williams, who is one of the pastors of the church, and we have become friends now, he approaches me the following year. How do you feel about doing Fight Club at the tattoo shop? I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. So we have Fight Club at my tattoo shop. Thursday night, we meet at a tattoo shop from 6:30, and we try to get out by 9, it's usually 10. And then some of the guys will go downstairs, because my shop is above the brewery. 1 block south of West Bay, the water. It's a great location. So guys will go down and hang out, maybe have a beer, talk some more about what we talk about. Fight Club was awesome. So we went from 6 guys, in 2 to 3 months, we were at 29. We had guys that were coming that would never go to church. They told me, we don't go to church. We're too judgmental, we're not going to church. But they come sit here, and it was raw, guys. I mean, they were F-bomb jobs sometimes. We had 4 or 5 guys that were combat veterans that were just struggling with what they've done. And I'm going to get into one right now whose name is Matt. And I met Matt. Me and my wife started this Uphill Redneck company about 6, 7 years ago. We were at a show in Gateway, Richmond. And I met Matt. Matt was from the Traverse City area. I invited Matt to Fight Club. Matt comes to Fight Club. Matt's a Marine. We did 3 tours, 2 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. I've never seen combat. I served in the Army Reserve, and reservists weren't being called up for combat back in those days. So I can't understand what he's been. Try, but unless you've been there, you can't. So I'm talking with Matt, and we're fishing, and he's coming to Fight Club, and we go fishing one day on this lake called Abuse Lake. Great bluegill, fast, it's fun. And we're sitting there, and he opens up to me, and he's tearing up, and he's like, look, man, he goes, I like this whole Jesus thing, and I understand it, but what I've done, there's no room in heaven for me. I'm like, what'd you do? And he tells me a story about a checkpoint in Iraq where they have signs up in English and Arabic that you can't come any further. And they do. And so then they fire flares off the windshield. People keep coming. They put 3-round burst over the top of the car. Car keeps coming. Is it an IED? What is it? Boom, they light the car up. He killed a woman and 3 kids. All right? That's real. And he's sitting on there, and I'm sitting there with him, and I'm like, wow, what do I say to him? So I look at him, I said, here's Matt, here's what I got for you. If you're sitting on this little boat right now with me, bragging about how you effed up some Hajis, or you did this, or you did that, I think you got a dark heart, and you really do need Jesus. I said, man, the remorse that you have? I said, let me tell you something. You aren't saved by works. You're saved by grace. All you do is accept a gift that was given to you before you were even born. Accept it. Follow Jesus. That's it. Forget about everything else. It's going to be hard to forget about everything else, because the only thing I can liken to what he's been through is being a firefighter and seeing dead kids. I don't know if your kids out there. Seeing things that, you're in the heart of it. Right? So I talked to him about this. He keeps coming to Fight Club, and he's bringing buddies now. And conversations sometimes get heated because they don't want to hear it. But we go through and we turn a lot of guys to Jesus at a tattoo shop. Right? Leviticus, don't mark your body, don't mourn the dead, don't mark your body, don't tattoo your body. Okay? It's Old Testament law. And look, I love the Bible, it's the living, breathing word of God. But what I had to understand, and what has gotten me to here, is the journey of understanding grace and how it's been in my life. From East little kid who liked to chase women and fight and drink and do whatever I wanted to do, to the young man who's got a kid with a birth defect and he's going through all this stuff and all these struggles and actually almost stepping out. 11 years of marriage, I almost stepped out of my life. We've been through a lot, but it always come back to grace. It always come back to not me screwing up, but me repenting to God and saying, thank you. And so now here I am with Matt, and I'm with these men in Fight Club in a tattoo shop. We made the news. And we're talking about grace, and we're sharing it. So, Fight Club is going good for 2 years. And Brian decides, always had a vision, it was put on his heart 10 years ago, 12 years ago, to start a church and a brewery. Meet people where they're at. Now, I don't know if any of you ever heard of Base Camp, but there's a thing called Base Camp that was started by a guy named Kevin DeGrave in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is known for their beer city, USA. And they're a men's group that meet brewery. And they're raw, they're real. They're real. And then it expanded. There's 50 base camps now. I'm actually going to be speaking at one, I believe, at the end of April in Detroit. So Brian's like, let's do a church and brewery. So we leave the tab and help plant a church and a brewery. And it went for 2.5 years. And we'd have sometimes 15 people there, sometimes 50 people there. Our membership was probably 30, 35. It was awesome. A lot of great things happening for God. I'm meeting people at the tattoo shop, and I'm bringing them to a church and a brewery. And they're open to that. They're like, what? Yeah, come to the brewery, and then afterwards, if you want to grab a beer, grab a beer. Now, my dad always taught me back to practical Christianity, there's nothing wrong with having a beer. Drunkenness is a sin. So you're having a beer at a brewery, that's fine, but I've even talked to my wife about that because she's a brewer. It's like, drunkenness is a sin, so let's try not to go there, you know. But meeting at a brewery, meeting people where they are. And what that brings to me is learning and studying the Bible and watching how Jesus worked. He met people where they were. I always go back to the woman at the well. He shows up at noon, because she ain't going in the morning with the other woman because she's an adulteress. And he meets her where she's at, and she becomes saved. So we're meeting people where they're at. Some people didn't agree with that. We've got some pushback on having a church at a brewery. Now I will say this, life has changed. The last service was 2 Sundays ago at the brewery. It's now no longer there. And I'm going to be going back to the tab with my wife. And which was a great church. I only left it to help start this church and the brewery. But the lives that were touched, including my buddy Russ, who's a family friend who owns the brewery, who the first year he was like, this is so awesome. Like he gave us a space rent free. He never charged rent. He's big on community. He let us meet at his brewery. He learned about Jesus through it. He's not a believer, he's an atheist. He's talking about him and his kids sitting around at lunch talking about what just happened at church that day. That's working. That's working Christianity to me. That's meeting people where they're at. That's sharing Jesus. But more, it's sharing Jesus. So that's working out great. And I'm going to come back to the story. I don't know how long I've been. I get long-winded. So 1 minute? Well, I'm definitely coming back to the story. It is Todd. Todd is a new believer. I tattoo his wife. He has a lot of health issues. He's a good man, but he's got a lot of health issues. He's struggling. The day we closed the doors of the church, afterwards we had a potluck dinner and we're sitting in the brewery meeting and we're talking. He goes, I got to talk to you. I'm like, all right, man. He goes, I want to talk to you this week. I said, sounds pretty serious. Let's talk now. So I sit down with him and his wife, and he's tearing up. He's like, I'm never going to have it. I'm like, why? I've done too much. I grew up in Flint, Michigan, and Flint's like East Toledo. It's rough. He goes, it's not going to happen. I'm like, you believe in Jesus? Yeah. You believe he's the Son of God? Yeah. You believe he died on the cross for your sins? Well, yeah. He rose from the dead? Yeah. I said, he ascended into heaven? Yeah. Sitting at the right hand of his Father? Yeah. You're good. What are you worried about? Well, I've done this, and this. I go, oh, dude, I've done things I'm not proud of. It ain't held against me. It's gone. As far as the east is from the west, it's gone. God's right. Our sins, I said, it's so hard to grasp grace sometimes for Christian people. They just don't get it. And last summer, I finally got it to where I can share it with Todd. Because last summer, I called Brian. Where you at? I'm at the office. I'll be there in a half hour. I walk in there, I said, I'm 57 years old, I finally understand grace. He starts laughing at me. He goes, what do you mean? I said, no more law, no more works, no more feeling guilty, no more shame. I'm done with all that. I'm moving forward. Every day, I'm praying, I'm moving forward, I'm focusing on Jesus, I'm doing what he wants me to do, he wants me to speak, he wants me to go here. I said this on the podcast I was on last year, that when I think of public speaking, when I put it out there, I was going to do this. When I think of public speaking, I'm nauseous and I'm terrified. I'm public speaking for God. Why am I nauseous and terrified? Even if I suck up here, someone's going to get something because God's going to use me, right? So even if I come up here and it's like, dude, this guy's like Like I saw motivational speaker, Christian tattooist on my blurb, and I'm like, motivational speaker? I don't know about that. I suck. God used me, and I gave myself to God. Used me. What happened is I have these conversations like with Todd, and I'm sitting here being used. And now I'm talking to my pastor friends, and I have a great group of men, mentors. I learned that. I need people older than me and younger than me that we can talk. And what I learned is now I can't get enough of Jesus. Now I can't shut up as I'm running late. All right? Now it's about where do you want me next? I had anxiety driving down here the first day. I drove down here from Northern Michigan because I brought my fly rod and all my stuff. I want fish. But we're in the middle of a winter storm right now. We're getting 6 to 10. So, I'm coming down here and I hit Indiana and there's a voice in my head saying, "Now you're going to suck, dude. Turn around and go home." You're gonna suck. And that's how it used to be. Well, I'm not going to suck because I'm doing what God wants me to do. All right? And for me, my message and my identity, I want it to be Jesus. My message, I want it to be grace. I want men, because you're right, Tim, we're jacked. A lot of guys don't want to admit it. I'll admit it. I was getting emotional. You're doing that. Dude, you took me back to East Toledo Baptist Church, right? But how great they are. I can see John the Prayer actor going, "How great," now, you know what I mean? I'm watching that. It's like, tear up. And then I forgot the name of the next song, but that's always in our church. And Vicky, when she sings that, dude, makes me cry every time. So I'm sitting here being emotional, but I am where I'm supposed to be. My dad was here 50 years ago. My dream / nightmare got me here. I'm in Houston, Texas. I know it's Richmond, but Houston's big. Houston's big. And I'm here sharing my story and the story of grace and the gospel with you, man. And I'm sure a lot of you have accepted Jesus. You're here. But if I can get anything out of this story, and my story, is never sell grace short. Because as soon as you think that it's not sufficient enough and you have to do something to earn your way to heaven, Jesus died for nothing. Why did he die on the cross? Just accept the gift. You're going to screw up. Accept that. You're going to screw up. We're all going to. You look at a woman lustfully twice, you just committed adultery. You're going to screw up. Repent, move forward. Like the gangsters like to say, forget about it. Just move forward. Right? That's all I got, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's so cool that my dad